I'd like to call the work session of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners to order and stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah.
Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Up next will be approval of the agenda. We'll start with general public comment. We have a presentation from Professor Maureen Eke, the Human Rights Committee Chairperson, and then appointment to the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Workforce Development Board, and then committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
And Human Resources and Public Works Committee. Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business, no new business. We'll have general public comment again, and then announcements and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Very good. Brings us to general public comment. And seeing no one for general public comment, we'll move right into presentations and special reports. And it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Maureen Eke.
Professor, there she is.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hope. You're one of the few people who actually says my name correctly, my last name correctly, so I'm impressed. Thank you, and I do appreciate the opportunity to present to you today some information, an update really about the Isabella County Human Rights Committee. And, as you know, we have been busy and we report to you. So this is by way of our annual report. I have a PowerPoint presentation here. I'm going to try and not bore you with all of it. And I'll just simply highlight some, key points for you. Okay. So am I able to share when I do, if I wanted to share?
Pardon me. Sounded like a question, but I can't hear you very well.
Oh, can you hear me now? Am I able to share the PowerPoint presentation? Okay, all right. We tried it earlier. So, okay, let me do some sharing here. Okay, so I'm probably going to disappear for some time. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So this is where we are. We are the Isabella County Human Rights Committee. Most of you know us, and it looks like there are quite a few people there, maybe a couple of people who don't know our work. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce who we are, what we do, why we're here, and then just give you some update in terms of what we have done, currently, what the challenges are for us, and how we do our work. Okay, so this is, our membership. There are 11 of us here, and Commissioner Steve Sweeney is, our liaison with, the Board of Commissioners, the County Board of Commissioners. So he is there, and we are so grateful that he is there. And in fact, we do appreciate the fact that you recognize us, that you consider us important. And that occasionally Commissioner Hope comes, and sometimes Commissioner Moreno also comes. So we welcome all of you. Please do come see, see what we're doing and listen to what we're doing. So here we are. We represent, the community as you see it, the tribe. That is a representative from the tribe from Central Michigan University, from the public schools, and then we have a certain number of people who are representatives or at-large representatives representing various community areas. We do have 3 standing subcommittees, although they're not, they're not often not working. Yeah, they're standing, there are 3 standing subcommittees, and their work is generally informed by what is happening. If nothing is happening, we're probably not going to be doing much. But if there are, issues that we need to attend to, then, those subcommittees kick in. And these are the 3 standing subcommittees: the community education, law enforcement. We do not enforce the law, but we talk about law enforcement issues, and we often talk to Director Paul Loria, who actually attends our meetings each month. And then there is the disability, subcommittee. We are not an enforcement mechanism. We make recommendations, and then hopefully, the board will either say something or do something, or at least to alert the board that this is what's happening and attention needs to be paid to these issues. Okay, so our Human Rights Committee was set up in, sort of established in 2008. And, it sort of morphed out of the old ADA committee. And then, of course, you realize that ADA issues are also part of human rights, concerns. The primary function for this particular committee is to pay attention to human rights violations in the community, in the county. We are county-wide, although much of our activities, at least, the key pieces of the activities in which we are involved tend to happen around Mount Pleasant, with a few exceptions, actually. The Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival that we attend, we've been attending that for, I don't know, quite some time. And then, if things happen at a tribe, we'll go there. Okay, but a lot of the things happen around Mount Pleasant. And so we attend these events because we want to make sure that we are present, we are in the public domain. We are not elected, we are appointed. Our charge is informed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And, if you pay, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights actually has 30 articles. And so if you look at the very first article, it's not like the preamble. It says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. Basically, that's what we try to protect. And that's what we try to, inform people, sort of, again, assert, sort of remind people that all members of the community, that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. Nobody's position or no human being supersedes another. You don't have more rights than me, although sometimes, things happen. But the reality is that we all have the same rights when we are born. And so part of our purpose is to, protect those 2 issues, human dignity and human rights. We provide a lot of programming through our community education subcommittee. COVID actually disrupted some of that, and hopefully in the future, we're going to begin to do that. We also make sure that we liaise with, various organizations and entities in the community. At CMU, the tribe, the public schools, we have members in those areas, the different, communities in which we come into contact. One of the ways in which we attend to these, human rights issues has to do with, we do, people, if somebody, one of our, as part of our charge, because we are responsible for reporting incidents of human rights violations in the community. So one of the things that we do is to provide opportunity or a mechanism for addressing that. And that mechanism is in our incident report form. And, so if you take a look at the incident report form, for instance, on our website, it simply states that anyone in Isabella County who believes that he or she or they have been discriminated against on the basis of religion, race, color, national origin, age, sexual orientation, marital status, sex, gender identification, height, familial status, weight, or disability. In other words, these are really all protected rights when we think about civil rights, also human and civil rights. That if anybody feels that they have, that these rights have been violated in any way, we encourage them to complete the incident report form, submit that form. The form comes to the county's office actually, and then it's forwarded to us. And that's the mechanism that then triggers our investigation. Just simply telling us that your rights have been violated will not make us go, we would like to investigate, but until we have that formal, document that says, this is what happened to me, how it happened to me, where it happened to me. In other words, I have been hurt and I've been hurt, or my rights have been violated in this particular way. This is the person or this is the entity that is responsible for this. This is when it happened. This is how it happened. This is where it happened. So when we get all of that information, then we look at that and then we begin an investigation. We may invite the person to come and talk to us, and we actually do. We have invited people, they come talk to us, and then we ask them, whether, part of the investigation means going to talk to the entity or the person, whom they claim has violated their rights. And, that person also has rights to talk to us. So we go investigate, and then, we put together a report. We also make sure we tell the people that, we are not going to take these people to court because we don't have that mechanism. The committee doesn't have that, bite, we just, I refer to the committee some days as a toothless bulldog. Yes, we'll do all of this work, but we're not going to be able to go to court and file a case for you or say, this is these are the, ways in which to fix the harm. Okay, we'll make recommendations. So in general, we monitor actions taken by our local government bodies. We monitor actions taken by organizations in the community. We monitor actions taken by particular entities in the community, and and then we report to the board. The extent to which the violations have affected the persons, and and the board then decides what it does. So this means also collecting a lot of data, So yeah, I've done miles and miles of traveling between, from Mount Pleasant to other places to look at, violations or to look at complaints. And then we also share the analysis with, the person or the people whose rights have been violated, or also the people, whom the person who has been hurt claims has violated their rights. So both the person affected and both the person causing it, we inform them at the end, about our finding or our analysis or our interpretation of what we are, of the information we have. It's just to make sure that everybody is covered. That way it is not inequitable. All right, so, all right, I'm gonna move. So there are, as you know, there are a lot of other communities or groups in Michigan that, that have, something similar to us. Here are some of those places. And in fact, there are more of them, but these are some. Traverse City, Kalamazoo, Ingham County, Grand Rapids, East Lansing, Genesee County, Ann Arbor. Those are some of these communities. All right, I'm going to go through this rather quickly because I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. Some of our initiatives, I'm actually going to stop sharing here so you can see my face. Okay. So some of our initiatives have included, we received a 2% grant in around 2011, 2012 to do a study of microaggressions against Native Americans. And then we went around and actually did presentations on, on that particular study, on the study and our findings. So some of you are familiar with, the study. If you want copies of the study, I think we shared copies of the study. We shared the study with some of the members who are here today. But if you want additional copies, we have tons. We can give you the trifold version, which is the summary, or we can give you the full copy, the full document, which is quite large, so that you can see what tribal members were saying in terms of microaggression. Does anybody here want me to talk about define microaggression? Okay. All right. So hearing none, I will keep going. So, and then, so the other thing that we have also done is, the way that we make ourselves known in the community is by getting involved in a lot of activities. And as I said, we've done the maple syrup, the Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival. We participate in CMU's MLK Day. We do homecoming. We are also going to participate in the Honoring, Healing, and Remembering, event that's happening on June 6th that has to do with the boarding school experience here in town. So if you're not participating, I encourage you to participate because that also deals with, human rights violation. We are now going to be presenting tabling at the farmers market, because we want people to know that we are here for them. And, we also have participated in the pop-up Pride events. One happened June 1st. So these are some of those areas. We have been participants at the Juneteenth event and also done presentations before CMU's faculty, CMU's SGA. So it just simply, shows how much we have become involved, how much we are involved in the community and in an attempt to make sure that people know that we are here and that we're here for them. Okay, I am gonna look at this. So let's see. So you might ask, what are the strategies for reaching our goals? I mentioned our participations. We talk about presentations and workshops, and we've held open forums. We've done book conversations. We also have an annual event, Let Peace Reign, that brings together community members. So we get donations from businesses across the community, and those donations we raffle out during the event to our members, to residents who attend. In the past few years, we've been holding that event at Island Park. It is in commemoration of the International Peace Day, which is generally September the 21st. This year, it will be September the 21st on Saturday, and it will be at the Art Pavilion, the art, thing at the middle of Island Park. That's where we are. So, and hopefully you'll get flyers later on, and we hope that you would come. Last year, I believe Commissioner Hope was there, and I also believe that Commissioner Moreno came. So this year, one of you should be ready to speak because last year you didn't speak. So this year we're inviting you to speak. You'll be one of our key speakers, so one of you. So we look forward to seeing you there. Our challenges, what are the things that, challenge us? Well, in the past, it's been our visibility. But I think that we have become a little bit more visible than we have been in the past. The other has to do with the mechanism for resolving the incidents reports that we get, because we can't do anything about, resolving them other than reporting to you. It feels as if, we do all this work and then nothing happens. And I know that each time we've done that, and I've talked to, people who have filed the reports, that sometimes frustrated. I had an incident last year where I did a lot of investigation on a housing complaint, and we couldn't solve that because there was something about the ordinance that has to do with housing, especially, trailer, housing, that was not making it possible for us to resolve the issue. And the woman was very, very, very frustrated about it. I was too. So I think, hopefully at some point we can figure out a way of, besides reporting, if you can guide us in terms of how we can resolve these particular incidents, that would help. The other has to do with funding. It's always funding. I mean, I realize that the county is stretched right now when it comes to funding, but that's also a challenge for us. So I want to say, first of all, that I'm grateful that we are still here. We are an important committee. We do good work. So I appreciate that. And the fact that, funding or not, that you recognize our importance. So I would say upfront that, we are grateful. And hopefully, as you think about the budget for the coming year, you don't strike us out, okay? So, all right. So, so let's see, I'm coming to a close now. So, let's see, if you're asking, so what can we do for you? Those of you who have businesses or who, who are affiliated with communities, in the county, what can we do for you? We can help you develop organizational and, organizational environments that are actually responsive to diversity and inclusion and human rights, because the community needs all of these elements, and people are happy when they believe or they feel that their rights and their dignity have been protected, have been recognized, have been honored. That's what we do. We are apartisan. We are not aligned with any particular party, so there is no party politics here. Our goal is to preserve the dignity and the human rights of all people in this community. Also, that would help towards peace in our community. You don't want to have a lot of crisis. So if we come in and say, hey, let's look at these particular issues and help organizations figure out how to address or put together protocols for dealing with these issues, that would help. In fact, I give you one example. We work very closely with the City of Mount Pleasant DPS's director, Paul Laurier. And the reason why we work closely with him is because we asked him to come give us a report at one point. At first he was reluctant, but he did come. And after a conversation with us, we worked with him and encouraged him to update some of their policies. They updated their immigration, their immigration policy. They updated their policy on, how to address people or handle, crisis. In fact, it was in response to our conversation with him that he eventually went to request for a trauma-informed specialist to work with them. And his, the law enforcement officers in his unit, they have gone through a whole series of training. So it is because he's been working with us. He brings us issues where he's not clear about certain things, and he asks for advice. He listens to us, we listen to him, we have a conversation with him, and then we offer suggestions. And this relationship has worked very well. So this is one example of where we come in to help. Our goal is to help the community. And so we also offer training on microaggression and building inclusive, work environment. So that said, this is it. Our meetings right now are on the first Monday of each month, unless, there is a public or national holiday. So we start at about 5:15, and right now we have been meeting at the Commission on Aging. And that's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
As the liaison, I just want to thank you, Dr. Ake, for your guidance and, energy and dedication to the group. You're definitely serving the county well in your position. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. I am so glad you're there. I really am.
Dr. AK, thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us. I appreciate it. And we appreciate the work you're doing. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hope. You're my neighbor, and I really do appreciate you too. I appreciate the work that you all do. Thank you so much for supporting us. And I want to add that I really do appreciate the work. I am grateful to Nicole and Melissa because, when I come screaming, or not screaming, I don't scream at them, but I kind of practically beg for money. They're willing to listen and to work with us. The office has just simply been very, very helpful. We couldn't do the things that we do without the office. As you know, we don't have any support staff. So all the support we get comes from that office. And so I am very grateful for that. And the committee thanks you and thanks everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll move along to appointments to boards and commissions. This evening, we'll consider appointing Eric Rodriguez to the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works Workforce Development Board for a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2026, or until a successor is appointed. Is there anyone that would like to say anything about that appointment or? Yeah.
I've known Eric a long time. I didn't want to do this working the practical chair, and I also saw him just recently at the distribution of the set, and he was really good. And so friendly, so knowledgeable, and such a good representative for his tribe. I think he'd be great in this position.
And as for myself, I've only been working with Eric for about 1.5 years now with the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works Consortium Board. And I have to tell you, he has a very high level of commitment, dedication, knowledge, passion when it comes to furthering the efforts of Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works to provide the necessary services and training to those members of our community that are most vulnerable, that really need what Great Lakes Bay offers. So he has been wonderful to work with, and everybody at the board and at Great Lakes Bay think very, very highly of him. So I would be very, very much in support of furthering his appointment to this board.
Wonderful, thank you. Else? All right, we'll move along to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first item is consider ratifying and placing on file the May 17, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $593,288.47. The May 24th, 2024 invoice list, the amount of $456,817.32, and the adjustment list dated May 30th, 2024. So we've had, when these bills get submitted, there are many eyes that review them and many opportunities to catch errors or to ask the questions. And we did that in committee meeting Before that, it was done at administration level and before that, at department or elected official office level. So he would come to the work session and give us one more opportunity to ask any questions that maybe haven't been asked at this point. So on the front page is those bills that exceed $5,000. We have quite a few related to drain work, which it's always a costly venture when you're doing the maintenance on the drains. Other than that, the contracts that we have are very familiar to myself and I believe the other commissioners. For example, looking at the hats, we do a biweekly animal control payment of $6,730.77. We are paying Spicer Group a little over close to 14,000 for solar plan review professional services, which is not covered under the general fund, but is a fund that is available to cover those costs as we look to move to a solar installation in the county. The two kind of unusual, and we did have a question, this Petoskey Investments LLC for $63,751 and North Star Mortgage LLC for $194,996. And it refers to Sheriff Mortgage Foreclosure Sale. And it's handled by the Treasurer's Office. Well, the sheriff is not repossessing property. It's the lending institutions that are repossessing it after the terms of the loan haven't been met. But it has to start someplace and it starts with the sheriff and goes to the treasurer's office. So other than that, when you take a look at the body of the bills, anything under 5,000, I'm at this point is a bunch of drain bills. The Commission on Aging usually has pages of payments for all their volunteers and their contractual staff stipends and travel. And then quite a few this time from the clerk's office dealing with restitution. The court finds, makes a judgment in terms of the people that are found guilty of certain crimes that have to pay restitution. And those restitutions are usually monthly. So these come up reoccurring, and it gets gradually gets paid back to the people that have lost the funds. Other than that, I didn't have any other questions on the May 17th list. Anybody else have a question?
I would just clarify the Spicer invoice here for solar plan review is through the drain office, and that's actually held in escrow. And so it's kind of an outside fund, kind of not, more like a pass through, honestly, but just wanted to point out that's offset with an escrow.
Thank you. Moving on to the May 24th list. Again, I kind of review these, and most of them are very, they keep coming back over and over because they're contracts that we have with various vendors. The one item that I forgot or didn't catch in committee, I see Gratiot Isabel Intermediate School District is getting $10,000 from Union Township payment in lieu of taxes. Now I'm familiar with the state paying in lieu of taxes for forestry land. I didn't know that there'd be governmental entities that would be making payments to for in lieu of taxes. I don't know if you have the answer for that. I apologize for not catching that in committee, but maybe you can follow up with that later.
I don't know off the top of my head, Commissioner, but I'll do a little digging right here. That is very unusual, I think. Right.
Are there any questions dealing with the May 24th list, either the front page or the background material?
What, I see that the Spicer Group we've got the payment for design services. What do we have from Spicer Group on that? Or what stage are they in design?
Still preliminary design. So what we've gotten really from them is a suggestion about how we could fit together and what our minimum square footage requirements would be. Rather that be for returning to that building, or of course in due diligence, we had to look at, what would it be? What could we fit in on a one-story new build, right? Because we're going back into a multi-story versus a new build. So they've been helping us with that due diligence. and providing the information that we need in regards to how much square footage we need. And then, like I said, also helping us to figure out building wise, we've got 3 floors, making the most use of each floor, making most of like the elevator that's there and the lobby that's there, and really utilizing the things that we have in place in the building. And what are our needs going to be for not only office space, but also for storage? And how can we accommodate in that building, right? Because we don't have to finish things finally if it's just going to be for storage, right? We have to meet code and then it can be storage. So Spicer's really been working through that. They've held 2 meetings with the departments and electeds right here in this room, to be able to analyze or to assess that information from each department and their needs and what the needs and wants are of the department. So they've been plugging along. Unfortunately, no escrow in place, certainly for this Spicer invoice. But these are what are called soft costs that we can roll into a borrow. So when we go forward with a borrow to finance the rehab of the county administration building, these soft costs, even though already paid, will be rolled or can be rolled into the cost of the borrow, the bond issue. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Tag on to what the Madam Administrator was talking about. I met with the Spicer, the architect. And thank you, Sheriff, for allowing us to walk through. Appreciate that greatly. So we did this extensive walkthrough of the entire building to see if there is an opportunity there to build part of that out as office space for some of our departments. Also being considered.
So I think we're getting real close on bringing forth a recommendation on the building. Some of us commissioners have been meeting with Spicer Group and Spence Brothers. And we know we have to do something. We can't keep our current situation gets us by, but everybody's just cramped in and we need to get back into our administration building. So there's been a lot of discussions. We're looking at costs, and I suspect that this coming Tuesday, our committee will be looking at formulating a recommendation to the full board for the next full board meeting.
Next steps.
We have we've worked through the zero-based budget. We did budget monies to repay a long-term bond to restructure that building. It's not going to be cheap. And we had no choice in the matter once we found the asbestos but we need to get the building back in shape and get back into it. But we will have the funds necessary to pay back the bond as we move forward. Hope I didn't let the cat out of the bag, Madam Administrator.
No cats.
Any other questions?
Here.
As I have recently pointed out, what is actually coming out of general fund. And for these 2 invoices, it totals only $172,000. I shouldn't say only, that's not fair. $172,589 of the over $1 million worth of bills being paid. So keep that in mind. Everything else is pass-through monies, and only $172,589 is coming out of general fund. So, thank you, sir.
So the last item is the May 30th adjustment list. And this list adjusts those 2 previous invoice lists that we've already talked about. And there are changes or additions to the list, and it's usually done to get a discount for paying early or to avoid a late fee. Because if we continue on our own accounts payable process, sometimes we go beyond the amount that's due on a certain date. So, and looking at this, there's not very many adjustments, but they're all related to either avoiding a late fee or getting a discount. Any questions on the adjustment list? Seeing no further questions, we'll move the 2 invoice lists and the adjustment list forward to tonight's meeting.
All right, our second item for the Finance and Administration Committee is to consider approving the prime contract change order number 20 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $7,668 and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. I believe we do have, there she is, Senior Project Manager Heidi Heinz-Kindle with us.
Hi, everybody. So I'm outside tonight. Hopefully you can hear me okay. taking advantage of this nice, beautiful weather. Prime contract change order number 20, in the amount of $7,668. All of it is still taken from buyout. We have not touched our contingency at this time. Right now, we have a buyout balance of $153,104. And our total buyout and contingency is $934,878. We are about 70% complete with construction, and we have about 42% remaining of our contingency / buyout. The items on this PCCO, number 99, we had to add some additional fire stopping at some beams, and so that was in area B, which is the booking area, and then also area A in the office area. We got an estimated cost of $68,000 to do that. We did that as T&M, and the total cost then doing it as T&M was $43,546. So we had a pretty nice little savings there by doing that T&M. Our next item on the list is PCO number 126. That was for area B. So in that area, all the booking rooms for when inmates or when someone comes in and they have an overnight stay, the walls were originally on the drawings to go to the deck. Because we do have a secured ceiling in each of those rooms where the inmates are going to be, we didn't need to take those masonry walls to the deck, which that resulted in about a $35,878 credit to the project. So it was a significant savings by not taking those all the way to the deck. We do not have any security issues with doing that because we do have that security ceiling in there. And for an inmate to get through that, I understand it'll take them quite some time. And because that is heavily watched area, that someone would probably notice them trying to get out. So that cost then total for the PCCO number 20 is $7,668. Any questions?
Heidi?
Yes.
Could you give us the percentage complete again? I missed.
Right now we are at 70%. We're probably going to be approaching into 72% here very quickly.
Say
so
70%?
70%.
Thank you, ma'am. You cut out again. I apologize for asking
Oh,
again.
here, I'll take the video off. I know that helps. Hopefully that'll help a little bit.
There you go. Any questions, gentlemen? Madam Administrator? No? All right. Well, thank you very much, Heidi. You have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye now.
Item number 3, consider approving the State Tax Commission Form L-4029-2024 tax rate request form, setting the 2024 Isabella County separate tax limitation operating rate at 6.61 mils and authorize the board chair and county clerk to sign the same. We have Mr. Pete Preston, the author of this form, here to explain it to us.
Thank you. The particular form there is a state form, so I can't claim all the authorship of it. It's the standard form that you folks move forward on every year to levy your millage rate for the summer tax levy. So as you can see this year, we're at 6.61, so there was no Headley rollback. So you would be levying, by acting on this, you'd be levying the 6.61 mils on the summer tax bill.
Thank you. We seem to have some audio disruptions from all our people that are coming in via Zoom. But are there any questions dealing with this form? All right, we'll move this on then for consideration at tonight's meeting.
And item 4 is to consider accepting and placing on file the 2024 State Tax Commission Form L-4046 Taxable Valuation Report as presented. And Pete, I'll turn this one over to you as well, if that's all right.
That is, and I will turn my video off and see if that works as well to help with the hearing. The 4046 form is a compilation of taxable values that were picked up from the March Board of Review information that equalization received. It is compiled. It is for your information as an accept and place on file. as it's just a form that will have Mr. Cunningham sign and submit to the state.
Anything else for us, Pete?
Nothing.
Very good. Commissioners, Madam Administrator, any questions, comments?
Unless you have questions for us.
I do not.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, folks.
We will move this to tonight's regular board session.
So our last item is the discussion regarding fiscal year 2025 requested budget. We have our first draft presentation from administration. This is a draft that a number of months in the making. And it's still a work in progress, but Madam Administrator, would you mind taking over?
I would not mind at all. As I reported in finance, it was a little tough to bring the first draft forward as it utilizes almost $600,000 of fund balance. And this is the budget that we're supposed to be zero base, so it's supposed to be
Balanced.
no use of fund balance, right? Revenues should match expenditures. So let's talk about why it's upside down and what's included. And I think it'll become clear why we are going to use fund balance. First and foremost, the board about maybe 6 weeks ago at a meeting voted to maintain road patrol deputies through the calendar year. Originally, that was not part of the budget and wasn't part of an ongoing zero base. And so we built that expenditure in per action of the board. Okay, so that was built in at about I think 515,000 total. So part of the reason why the zero base or the fiscal 25 draft, it doesn't balance.
Real quick, just so that everybody knows when you're talking about zero base, because a lot of people will think balanced budget at like we're getting to a budget where we're not spending more than our property taxes or revenues. But that's not about here with the zero base. And so if you could explain that real quick so that we have kind of a record maybe on YouTube.
Sure. Absolutely love it. And the commissioners that have been involved with this process mostly are the finance commissioners, Commissioner Embry and Vice Chairman Jelezinski and Chairman Hope as well. So those were the commissioners that interim Deputy Administrator Controller Melissa Frankwist and I met with through the zero base. The whole point of the zero base was to start at zero instead of taking last year's budget numbers and adjusting. We start with nothing and we start to add in all of the mandates. You have to have a board of commissioners. You have to have a treasurer. You have to have a chief deputy treasurer. You have to have an IT director, right? You have to have county clerk. And we start to build all these things in. We did that for expenditures and for revenues. And what we learned from that was that we had a couple $1 million almost of revenues beyond the true mandated, right? Mandated versus non-mandated. And so myself, Melissa, and these three commissioners made some recommendations in the zero base as to what to do with those monies beyond what would fund simply mandated services. Okay.
Right. So the zero base is what we would spend if we're spending for only mandated services. And then from there, we're budget when we're utilizing the 1 to 2 million more in revenue.
That's a great way to say that, I think, yes. So in the whole charge was to get to zero, right? To net zero with available revenues and necessary and essential spending. Okay. So this budget, you would expect this draft to be zero because we've been working towards that point. As we know, that zero base did not include road deputy services because it was not quote unquote a mandated function. When the board voted to continue those through the calendar year, we needed to add that expenditure, at least for the first quarter, into the budget. Now, the board's also talked about a millage request that is forthcoming. So if that's successful, then that will be, it'll be separate from general fund, right? It'll be its own millage dollars, and that'll fund, well, what the millage language is gonna say that it funds, right? And that'll be separate from the general fund. But for right now, those services are in general fund, so we have to fund them, right? So that's one of the reasons we're a little negative with the first draft. Another thing that's included that is funded in here is the MSU extension contract fully, right? So that's almost 172,000. Remember, they give us a halftime 4-H agent. Here, what that 172,000 is for that other halftime of the 4-H to make it a full-time 4-H program, and then also a full-time office assistant. Up our portion. MCOG dues, I know we said no dues and subscriptions, but the return on investment for our East Michigan Council of Government dues and the grant information they bring to us, the data that they help us with when we do have applications, that's a $7,000 spend, and that is built into this budget draft. Also, the MMDC appropriation, Middle Michigan Development Corp. We do have a contract with that organization to provide economic development services for the county. It's got a 4% escalator each year written into that contract. So there is funding for MMDC to the tune of just shy of 44,000. One thing we had done working on our forecast and what are going to be the best management practices we have for budgeting going forward is we had very proudly built in $250,000 every year for capital improvements, right? For unforeseen capital improvements. And that was one of the first things, of course, pulled out of the mandated or zero-based budget. Obviously the error of that can be, you don't have funds set aside when surprise facility repairs come. So based on feedback, we've built in $75,000 for the annual appropriation for capital improvements. Now that's in addition to what facilities or departments might bring forward for capital improvements. But the only capital improvement brought forward so far in the fiscal 25 budget process is a $40,000 improvement from facilities, and that's for lining of the courthouse roof. It's my understanding if we do this now, we can make the roof last a few more years instead of spending the $250,000 like we did on the county building roof recently. So it's an investment. One unique thing that this draft has that we promised you we would build in is a beefed up contingency fund. And this is in there to help you fund some of these things we're going to talk about that aren't in the first draft of the budget. The contingency as it sits in this draft, and we are still having budget meetings, and so it can change a little bit, is just over $500,000. So logic tells you, we promised you, right, we would give you a large contingency to be able to utilize. If we hadn't done the contingency, obviously we'd be closer to balancing this first draft, right? We'd be only about 90,000 a use of fund balance. But it was important, I think, to you to have that contingency there. Just think about that. This does include a MRF appropriation. The board has certainly supported continued funding for the MRF, especially given the multi-county or regional project that we have going to grow the MRF into regional capacity. So that appropriation sits at $315,000 in this budget. There's also an appropriation to our GIS fund, just over $10,000. And one thing referenced earlier, there is $750,000 built in here for a bond payment for the county building rehab work. Okay. Also, in fiscal 25, we will have the last portion of the correctional facility. It'll be complete in fiscal 25. So remember that $41.5 million USDA loan doesn't pay for the $48 million project. So we will still have a little bit of cash outlay yet in fiscal 25. That's our portion. That's about 571,000, and that is built into this draft. So with all that built in, it's actually pretty fantastic. We're only at 590,000 use of fund balance. Some things not built in, and we talked about these in Finance Committee, and I'll tell you what their recommendation was, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Emergency Management Coordinator, that position's been a little contentious. That is not built into the draft. We were directed by Finance to build that into the draft. Assistant Prosecuting Attorney position is not built into this draft one. We talked a little bit at Finance about our thought process with this specific position. This is the, I believe, Senior Assistant Prosecuting Assistant position, Prosecuting Attorney position that has been funded for the last few years with ARPA dollars. And in our budget resolution, we know when funding goes away, the position goes away. And that's been understood, and that's kind of been the premise that we've been working under with this position. It's ARPA funded. When the funding goes away, it goes away. What we talked a little bit in Finance about was that if this position isn't reinstated, regardless of how it was funded, it will put the prosecuting attorney's office at one attorney less than the public defender's office. So it just philosophically, I think we need to think about that. The Finance Committee did not instruct us to build that position back in at this time. HATS contract, we know currently is at 175,000 a year. There has been certainly a level of interest from the commissioners to build something back in for that. There is not anything built in for that contract in this draft, but again, part of why you've got some contingency there too. Drains intern and prosecuting attorney intern were not in the draft one. Those positions are about 10,000 apiece, very valuable to both offices. I believe the direction was from Finance to build those back in, return on investment. Also, some other things we talked about, dues and subscriptions. You know, they were pulled out across the board, and then as we met with departments, they were kind of built in. And so we talked with Finance about the dues and subscriptions specifically for the Board of Commissioners. Some are pretty minor, some are larger. But we went through the list, and the committee asked to reinstate the dues to CVB, a Convention and Visitors Bureau, $750 a year. Chamber of Commerce dues are pretty minimal. Michigan Association of dues, sizable, $8,600, but I think we agreed that MAC helps us a lot, and I don't know that any of us would want to do this without the guidance that they provide. Similarly, Michigan Township Association, $350 a year, and if you get those Friday updates, they usually have a lot more information than even the MAC ones. I think they help us a lot. National Association of Counties was one that the committee didn't really see a lot of value out of, and I do have to admit, I did reach out to them a couple weeks ago on something that I still have yet to hear back. So I would agree with that. Nearly $3 million of extras that we talked, I shouldn't say extras, of items included for funding in the first draft. About 400,000 of things we just talked about that weren't included, some is being directed back in, but again, you've got that contingency also to work with. Some good news forthcoming, solar revenues, right? We did not predict in this draft that we would have a solar farm coming or any additional tax revenue from it. The solar farm was approved at the special use permit hearing last Wednesday. And although a solar farm wouldn't be complete by December 31st of this calendar year, it would be under construction. And so we would hope to see some tax revenue in fiscal 25.
My understanding is wind turbines, we didn't see industrial tax until they were actually turned on. operational. And I know that in the meeting, they said that they wouldn't be finished with the solar park until October of 2025, if it was approved. So I wouldn't expect revenues from industrial tax.
So we have to wait for 100% of our tax revenue, if you will, from the 50% of true cash or the taxable value. We have to wait for that until they're producing energy, 100% constructed and making power. But as of tax day, if they're under construction, they come on the tax roll at 50% of the value that's there, I believe.
Okay.
So we will see some, and it's almost kind of nice. You think, oh, well, that's too bad. They've got to wait to get to 100%. But because it's industrial personal property, it depreciates. And so year one at 100% is our best year. If we get an extra year at 50%, that's okay, right? That's doing pretty good because they do depreciate pretty quickly.
So it'd be, saying it'd be on tax rolls in summer property tax.
Yeah,
Right, 'cause
because
it's
that's
already-
when we'll get our 6.61,
This fiscal budget.
because there'll be value there December 31st of 2024 that will attach to that summer 25 tax bill.
Okay.
Great question. Now I got excited about solar and
Couple more things that aren't included yet is there's nothing been budgeted for wage study implementation or COLA at this time, cost of living increase for employees. So we're gonna have to take a look at that too. So I take it the main bond repayment for the county jail, it's a mandated requirement, so that's why you list the non-mandated portion, but not the other.
yes, sir. The things I went over were up for discussion. The bond payment for the correctional facility is not up for discussion. That's a first order of business in the budget.
And I know looking at the $500,000 contingency, it seems like a whole lot, but we've made some various significant adjustments to the budget, and we don't know the full consequences of that. So we need to have some funds in case we have to step back and re-implement some things. So we're hoping that's not going to be the case, but we can't be strung out. Questions on the first draft? Commissioner England.
Yeah, just a comment. Do appreciate keeping the MRF facility in there. We're actually, I don't know if quick update on that, but amount of material. We've got 6 counties online, probably another 1 or maybe another 2. So probably exceeded our expectations. We're working on the final draft of it's such a small footprint. We've had to do some tweaking in there to get that in there. So with our next meeting is actually, we're going to concentrate exclusively. We split the 2 groups up. So we'll be concentrating on the building. So I think with the material, if we get that going in there, it should be a plus instead of a minus in there. And I think everybody's looking forward to it. And the amount of material we got in there, we're just trying to get that together. So I think that to keep that going till this process, until we get up and running, it's appreciated.
I know it'd be wonderful to eliminate that $315,000 yearly allocation. Definitely help us out.
And I will say, just so you're aware, I don't want any misperceptions. That doesn't give the MRF carte blanche. Melissa and I sat with Director Borton today on a follow-up budget meeting. With our $315,000 appropriation, he's still using $250,000 worth of fund balance, and that is not sustainable. So we've asked him to sharpen his pencil and go back. I don't want you to think, oh, we did the MRF budget and it came up 315,000 short. That's not what's happening here. Okay, the MRF is sharpening their pencil too. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Some of the commodity prices are actually going up, so that will help a little bit, especially the cardboard. So
Cardboard.
And
not
the-
enough though.
such a tough budget too, right?
Okay.
Commodities.
Switch gears, so the senior prosecuting attorney position, is that the same position that was applied for the 2%?
Yes, sir. It was the same position. It was not funded.
Right,
Mhm. We learned through this round that the tribe, it's something, it sounds like, we relearned maybe, that the tribe doesn't like to fund positions. They have good logic and reasonings for that. So that's good to know, good to remember.
That's one thing, Commissioner Swaney, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things in my mind that we would be remiss if we didn't try to work that into the budget. If we can't do that, then it's gotta be part of that special millage that we asked for in November, in my mind, just my opinion. We've gotta staff our prosecuting attorneys. Doesn't help to arrest people if you can't prosecute them. The other important thing in the finance committee talked about putting this back in as the emergency management coordinator position. I was glad to see that. I think that's a critical position. The other thing still kind of hanging out there is the HATS contract, and we have to run an animal shelter. We're mandated to take care of stray dogs at the very least. And I know that we can't run a shelter as efficiently as HATS does. So we need to somehow work that in.
I guess we're gonna play back and forth across each other. I know that has been many points of conversation with constituents in my area that have come to me personally to ask about HATS and our funding for that. So I do know that is also a concern, but I have mentioned that they should do that in front of the board so everybody sees them.
Well, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. I think we need to look at all options for the occasional dog that we may have to confine, and whether we can do that, confining it in a neighboring county, or if there's other somewhat type of service, but I don't think we're gonna be able to afford $175,000 a year for HATS. If we come up, it's gonna be in my regard, a very small portion, because if we fund that, we're gonna have to take it away from someplace else.
Right. I realize that we're not going to be funding them at 175. I just think that the constituents want the service, and so we should definitely make every effort to work with HATS to see what we can do to keep the doors open.
I have a question about that issue. Didn't we think about having HATS take over or something like that, some kind of different arrangement? Did that go?
With the facility building?
Yeah, what we've initially talked with them about is the shelter itself. And, right now the shelter, we own the building, right? We maintain the building, we heat the building, we cool the building, we clean the building, we repair the building.
Mhm.
And that's obviously cost. We insure the building, all of that. And we talked to them about what if we gifted HATS the building, and they're working through is an asset valuable to them, or do they need cash, right? So I think they're working through that too. But the unique thing is that it's a county-owned building on city property. We lease that from the city. It's actually part of
Oh, they'd have to
the
pay
airport.
taxes.
And the city, I think our lease with the city for that property, I think the city would have to be involved, and they would likely have to support that exchange. But it would be a way for the county to give without coming up with cash. It would be a way for them to, gain some value on their books, and obviously it'd be a way for us to limit expenditures, because facilities time and expense to be out there and maintain and operate that building. So that's just what's been discussed at a very high level, with chairman and myself and, just a couple of members from HATS.
Just there may be another piece of that puzzle too.
Right.
So pretty sure that the constitutional requirement for the county to operate or contract with. So even though that may be an avenue, there probably will still need to be some sort of contractual agreement between HATS and the county because there is constitutional requirements with this. Whether that's a financial.
Two separate things, contract, building.
May not be able to separate completely from that project, the way that the Constitution says.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the first draft? Or comments?
Madam Administrator.
I would just like to thank the department heads, electeds, and especially the commissioners being involved on the front end. I think has really helped to guide the process. I would recommend doing that in the future. Melissa, did you have anything you wanted to point out, say, or ask her on the draft?
The only thing that we talked about that was included, but not back in, was the payroll. and AP.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sure. Thank you.
Like the different offices, all that, not
Okay, sure. So we had been talking about structure and do we move from administrator controller structure to administrator? Do we give payroll and accounts payable duties to the clerk? Can we transfer general ledger responsibilities to the treasurer? And that didn't work. That didn't work. And that's okay. Timing wasn't right. So what was in the zero base, we had an accountant position in the treasurer's department, right? Because we moved the GL over there. We had AP and payroll in the clerk's office. And so those were taken away from admin. So in this draft, those are built back in under admin. But an additional change we made in our recommendation and built in is that if we felt really strongly that the focus needed to be on finance. And that was part of the recommendation of moving the general ledger to the treasurer to help that finance piece, the people who know finance to focus on finance. And our recommendation is in order to focus on finance and admin, we likely don't need a deputy administrator controller. We likely need a finance director. And so this draft has an administrator controller and admin, the executive assistant, and human resource specialist. Then a finance department with a finance director, an accountant, a payroll specialist, payroll clerk, same person, and a AP clerk. So same amount of bodies, just structured different. Any questions about that?
I don't know, anybody? I wanted to move on to last item before we move on. So we heard from the Human Rights Committee, and they're covered in this budget at just the per diem right now. And where, putting a small amount of money, it still has a lot of, community outreach is that group. And so I would ask the Finance Committee to think about, $500 or $1,000 stipend as well above the per diem, so they can continue going to community, fairs and the Pride pop-up and the parades, and basically it gets the county Isabella Human Rights Committee out there in front of our constituents for some outreach, because there are, table fees and, all these type of small things. And then we also do, like say, let peace reign, pay for a speaker. And usually those speakers are like, $125 or something for someone to come in and do it, and they're usually hosted already by someone from the committee, or so a small stipend for that group, I think, would go a long way to continue that community outreach for that organization. Otherwise, I don't know how they can get out there and continue to engage the community. And so their value goes down drastically, I think.
The only thing we discussed with Dr. Eke in our budget meeting with her, it was that the Human Rights Committee members could decide to not meet every month. But there may be a need, so maybe they can't make the decision, right, if there's an incident form. And so that would generate savings that we could do a budget amendment to move that into materials and supplies, that you're right. And that's really the only option they have is to not meet to save funds.
Thank you for the input.
One question here, when I look through this, the Board of Commissioners line jumps way up, and I remember you saying that there was a placeholder for something there. I don't remember what it was.
There's a placeholder for a lot of things, and Melissa, I'm probably gonna need your help on this. I know the increase in our MERS liability was built in there to the tune of 150,000, I think. There's a 10% increase in healthcare that was built in, so to the tune of $240,000. There's probably an amount in there for step increases, 35-ish. 80,000. Okay, well, 2, 3, 470. That pretty much gets it. Was there anything else you can think of? That's about 400. That's right. The $100,000 or $90,000 that we had computers were in all departments. We rolled it into BOC. So when you look across there, you'll see the zero-based budget has a really big number for BOC because it had all of that hidden in there. Because I shouldn't say hidden. It had all of that built in there because we didn't want to go through the trouble of building all of that where it needs to go until we knew that was the direction we're going, right? And so now everything's built in. It's not place held in the Board of Commissioners department anymore. Does that make sense, Chairman?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Also, and you mentioned the MERS is in there. Our MERS debt has increased dramatically and will continue to do so. I think goes up to 4 million within a year or two, from 2 million just a few years ago. Part of that is because MERS had a negative 9% year last year, 2 years ago. And so they're still recovering from that.
It was 14 and 21.
Yeah, it was like
Okay.
-12.
So that's been a huge cost. And then our health benefits, of course, continue to climb. That's been a huge cost as well. So
That's gonna give it.
I will say though, in admin, they had a huge turnover, and despite that, have managed to save quite a bit on contracted financial services. In 2017, we spent 168,000, 160,000 in 2018. Fiscal year 24, we're slated to spend 55,000. Last year, fiscal year 2023, we spent 52,000. So that's our own accountants. That's Melissa and Nicole and our other folks doing a lot more of that work that we used to contract out. Let's see that. There's a lot of cuts to this budget. We talk about how when we got done with the process, we had money left, but that process was some substantial cuts, and pretty soon we'll start start laying those out and talking about those in more detail. What those were. The department heads have been fantastic in coming to us with, some pretty creative ideas on how to save money. So appreciate that. Outside the box.
Yes, in my summary comments, I just want to echo too, it's been a pleasure working with the department heads and elected officials and coming up to a nearly balanced budget. We still have some challenges ahead of us, but we're going to get there. We've got additional discussions going on and going to get there. With that,
Can I add one thing? I know you mentioned a thank you to the department heads and electeds. I've echoed that several times. I do want to point out, Madam Administrator and Madam Deputy Administrative Controller, to say the least, we kind of put them through the ringer over the last couple months, trying to work through this zero-based budget, balancing a budget and having all these meetings. I know it's very, very challenging, so thank you for the effort you put forth. Thank you, ma'am. Greatly appreciate it.
so looking back on all the hours and days that we spent on crafting this first draft, I was over at an organization called NAIR picking up free stuff to bring back to the counties, nonprofits and governments and schools, and I found a book, Calming the Rush of Panic. And made sure all the commissioners had a copy and our two administrator and deputy administrators. So there's been a lot of stress throughout the organization, and we know that, and we appreciate everybody working with us. With that, that will end the discussion. We'll end the Finance Administration Committee work for this, for the work session.
Thanks, gentlemen. And that will bring us to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have consider approving the payment of milestone 4 in the amount of $439,746.80 for the radio tower project. This is payment going forward of a $4.8 million project, and this is we're actually seeing some work being done now. So still in phase 1 though. So Sheriff, you want to explain?
These are easy to put together. I just copy and paste. So milestone 4 is on the radio tower project. Money is not generated or come from general fund. It's appropriated from the state. Same process. We get these invoices during major work on that tower and that project. And we turn that around pretty quickly through EFT process to pay Motorola. They immediately give us a cleared payment EFT back. We submit that to DTMB. They're aware, and they turn their payments around to us within a few days, back to our general fund. I am setting on milestone 6, and you might ask where milestone 5 went. It's a non-billable milestone, so we like those. And that one, I told them that we are not submitting that one back to back, so you'll see that come through the next CJ and then the next Board of Commission, and same amount. With all of those put together, we've spent approximately $2.2 million on this project. The tower is up, the antennas are there, shelter's in place. I don't think we're going to cut any more fiber or cables. I think we've passed that dilemma. They're doing a ton of wiring out there. We do have a backup generator at 125,000 watt to support central dispatch if there's any issues in between. New generator is either there or should be close to being there to get wired up as well. From this point forward, there is work to be done on the 6303 tower, which is in the west part of our county, and then I think it's 4129 or something like that tower in Midland County down in the Shepherd corner. That'll create that loop. So there is some more work to do on towers, not necessarily on our tower. Then lots of programming. The police chiefs at the last meeting determined that it was time to start engaging in that second or third phase, I guess it is, about radios, handhelds and mobiles. So we're going to sit down with Motorola here shortly, kind of get a demo and decide what we want in those radios. We're not purchasing those radios until we flip the switch and turn that tower on. All the agencies are prepared to do a pretty rapid and extensive test. Locations that we know that don't work and other places that we may think it should work. And if we're good there, we'll move forward to that phase 3 of purchasing those radios. So there may be a skip in between here for a while before we see any more milestones or payments required, but we'll see how that goes. If there are some failures in some of the buildings that are crucial and critical to what we believe need to be good communications, we will probably engage in some BDAs or bidirectional antennas to make sure that those buildings have that type of infrastructure, and that could be campus, box stores, hospitals, just, city hall, any place that might be a problem. We've been almost guaranteed, but we'll see how that goes, that this tower should penetrate those areas fairly well without any additional help. So proof is in the pudding as far as we're concerned, and that's where we'll be leading to next. So.
Okay, any more questions for the sheriff? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's session. Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, second item, consider approving the recommendation to place the full-time deputy county clerk grade 7 at a part-time status effective immediately. Okay, we have Clerk Lux here to,
Basically, we've had a lot of dynamics and changes in my office. Shelley Nelson, the deputy clerk, chief deputy clerk, has left, and Leanne Ellis came up as my chief deputy clerk. That left her position open. We currently are in the process of hiring someone for that position. I have another open position, a full-time, and I know due to funding that probably is not going to be possible. So I would like to bring it down to part-time, not only bringing it down to part-time, but also utilizing the CPL fund to pay for this employee. So it'll be basically a savings of an entire position for the county.
thank you, and that'll be a 29-hour-a-week position,
Up to 29.
up to. Yeah. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move that forward to tonight's session. And that finishes the business of the criminal justice and county affairs.
Thank you. And that'll take us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving change order number 3 with JB Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $880 for the Commission on Aging Pavilion Project, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Okay, Jen.
Hi there. So this is the third change order that we brought forward. The first two we had anticipated, we knew they were coming. The one was for sewer and the second was the water hookup. But this one is new, but it has to do with that lift station riser that's there. And per the recommendation of Steve Shoemaker and also our JBS guy, they think that if we could spend $880 and put a curb in front, we would prevent somebody from driving over and damaging that, which would cost us a lot more money to repair. So I think it's definitely a wise idea for the project.
Any questions or comments on this? Yeah, I think it's a good investment to prevent, destruction.
Just like our island part of the islands that we have in the parking lot, when we put those curbs up, we have saved so much in sprinkler heads every spring from somebody running them over. And so it's curbs are very good.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Robert, can I ask a off the wall question? My mother was paying compliments to the flowers outside. Who handles those?
We have a few different groups, and at our sign out front and the 2 islands we have in the parking lot, the Mount Pleasant Garden Club, their volunteers take care of those for us. And then all around the walking path, all those different, all the different flower beds, and it's just beautiful. One of our board members from Friends of Isabella Seniors, Roy Burlington, he has headed that up, and he gets a group of, he's a retired CMU biology professor. And so he always brings out groups of CMU students, and they come out and volunteer, and they help him weed and put new mulch down. And that Friends board has helped fund a lot of that out there. They call that the beautification project out there along the walking path.
Okay, thank you. And
There's no more comments or completes the work of the Human Resources Committee, Mr. Chair, and Public Works.
We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrative controller issues, no unfinished or new business. Brings us to general public comments. Is there anyone for general public comment? Being no one for general public comment, announcements, commissioners, any announcements? Yes, sir.
Yes, just would like to remind everybody that this Saturday at the county fairgrounds, there will be an electronic waste and household hazardous waste pickup. So from 8 to noon at the Isabella County Fairgrounds this Saturday.
With,
So last Wednesday, May 29th, the Planning Commission had a special meeting where DTE proposed a solar park in Isabella Township. It was a long Planning Commission meeting, but when we finally got through, we approved the park with several conditions, all with the intent of protecting the citizens who have property used by the DTE and also non-participating people around who live around the proposed park. So for example, the commissioners requested that instead of the single line of spruce trees 15 feet apart that would block the solar panels, we proposed that there be 2 lines of varying species. So what might be deciduous and conifers on one line, and then tall grasses in front of them that would maintain sightline block year round, because they would be brown in the winter and green in the summer, and have a continuous blockage across it. That's one example. Another example is those who are concerned about sound from the transformers. We have mandate that they have to come back and do a study and prove that their sound decibels are below the required county limit. And then, of course, Spicer Group and our law firm, had proposed, I think, at least a dozen other requirements. So they were definitely helping county. So well served having those two looking over the plans.
As long as they don't put any autumn olive in there for a windbreak, please. Autumn olive. They did that in the
Yes.
They did that in the 50s. They thought that was a great deal. Now it's an invasive species.
So underneath the solar panels, they are putting plants that are native to the area, but interesting, those that are in the PA 116 farmland that it's being used, those species are mandated, like what percentage of each mandated by the state. So everything proposed is with the intent that if the park is decommissioned, it will all be removed, and the farmland has to be set back to its original state to be refarmed.
so I haven't received in my email yet the 2% distribution. Is that something that's still that you have that you can send out, or who's gotten the grants?
Sent out earlier today.
Oh, okay, maybe I didn't check it then. So I just want to say I went on vacation to Bangkok, and I thought, oh, this would be a great relief from the stress of county government. So Bangkok's got a rather new subway system. When you walk on one of their subway cars, you're greeted with this big sign that talks about priority seating. So priority seating goes to people with disability, pregnant women, children, and elderly. So the subway doors open up and everybody's just pushing to get in. My wife and a couple we travel with, they got seating and I didn't. So I'm holding the loop, and the train's going, and this 50-year-old lady gets up and offers me her seat. So I'm in crisis over that now, so. I couldn't believe it, but anyhow.
It happens. Any other announcements? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
All right, we're adjourned at 6:34. Their session on time.